We are live. We're back. We're back. Rapid games at its best, or bingo games at its best. That's how you pronounce it. All right, 10-0. Here we go. Oh wow, this is actually Candidate Master. This guy is pretty good. All right, G6. Now we have a good game. 2500. He been there for 1 year, so his bullet rating is 27, so he's up there. So Bishop G7, we already have a challenge early on. This is a modern defense. Knight of 3, C6, D5. It's D5, E5 takes the old standard. Takes, you could take here, takes, pawn takes. You don't want to take with the bishop again, bishop h6. You want to take with the pawn. Bishop h6, and if you were to take with the knight, you take with the bishop, excuse me, you're not going to castle. You would have a hard time castling. So he took this way. Typically white might be slightly better in these lines. I would argue that maybe still good enough for black to create something later on. Bishop d3, castles, rook e8. He's probably going to castle. There's also bishop f4, c3. It's like a combo of moves. Combination of moves. Rook e8, potential here. c3, they all make sense. Maybe it's even actually here. We are live. We are live. Explaining the moves as we go along, right? c3, probably doesn't matter between the move order. Maybe I have bishop f4 is a preference for me because I may have queen c7, disallowing bishop f4. Maybe I'm considering this one, so he doesn't get to play here. And if you want to play g3, bishop f4, the pawn is hanging on h3. So this move may make a lot of sense. So he doesn't play here. He could still play bishop b3, but then it becomes a normal game. It's normal game anyway. There's also rook e1. It's potential. So typically those double pawns, it is actually a little bit of concern, right? In some kind of an endgame, but they are controlling some key squares. g5, e5, rook e1, yeah. Rook e1, Mr. Candidate Masters knows what to do. And this is actually a good move. That's typically if you trade everything, then white is actually better. And maybe e here in 97. So typically here, I guess he might try bishop c4. You take, rook takes. All right, we're gonna try it. Maybe this is a move. You could still play bishop e3, but makes sense here. Makes sense bishop c4. There's maybe some limited moves here. I don't think it's e4. It doesn't make a lot of sense here. Just want to develop a little bit more. I guess bishop c4 does make a little bit of sense here, because obviously you may take on e6 in some line, and then you may have a weak e6 pawn. He plays bishop d2. I actually figured that maybe here, but I guess the problem was bishop e3. It's blocking, not locking. Maybe we are locking the rook somewhere, but we are blocking. He's gonna block the rook on e1 from activity. So this one actually makes sense. It does explain why he's doing it. So knight d7. We both are developing. So maybe now it's a good, maybe that c4, yeah, maybe this is how you proceed. You do have to be careful, somehow not allowing d5. Your bishop might be trapped. Also, you want to hang on to f5 as much as possible. In some lines where you play f5, you want to open up here. If you play it too fast and too quickly, it may give some weaknesses, like he's already jumping on g5. f5, knight g5, maybe it's still bishop takes d4. So maybe here, bishop c3, claiming that, maybe white has some play with, jumping all across, whether e5 or g5. We could also try to say, well, d4 could be weakness. So maybe we could go after, like, develop the other rook. We have 1 on e8. We may as well go for d8. And again, if push, we could take here for now. So maybe it's something like here. Rook c1 is very interesting, actually. So this actually is threatening d5. Felt like rook c1 is better instead of queen c2, but because rook c1 was threatening here, you cannot really take because the rook would be attacking the queen on c7. That would be winning a piece. So queen c2 doesn't have this, maybe still have the same idea, perhaps. He also wants to connect the two rooks, but I felt like the rook was better anyway on c1. Whether, I mean, he could play like queen b3, queen c2 in the next move, but maybe this move order is okay. It's d5 anyway. So here's the question what to do. I think maybe it's queen b8. So I'm disallowing d5 in this line. I may have to consider f5. So maybe it's something like here. So this stopping d5, because I could actually take now. The queen is not on c7. I mean, so far, what he's playing makes a lot of sense. Bishop c3, yeah, makes sense. d4, defending d4. If I play knight b6 is b3, I'm not really reaching somewhere. You could also play defense, a little bit of defense, knight f8. Some kind of f5, maybe somehow. Let's try it. So, you know, trying to get the rook involved. Involve, you know, like activity-wise. Maybe there's situations here where you get to play knight e6. I'm not sure exactly where here, but we could try. Here's bishop e5. So we both lining up the rooks perfectly here, and it's funny. It's funny how he's playing this. He's playing really accurate. I mean, maybe h6 is a winning move, b6 maybe a little bit weakening. I think I may need like a waiting move to see exactly what he's trying to do. Not sure about direct f5 right now. Doesn't make too much sense to me. I still have knight e5 and knight g5 stuff. And I think here's bishop e5. If he takes, still this d4 is a passer or weakness. Here, bishop here, rook d7. I guess b5 is just b3 then, honestly. b4 here. Okay, maybe we just go back and try to trade one pair of rooks, meaning the real question is here at bishop d7. I'm actually not sure which one makes more sense. So try this. The idea is maybe we trade one pair of rooks and then we play knight e6. Maybe, but I have to be worried about... I have to be, I mean, not worry, but be a little bit concerned about d5. I mean, the point of knight e6, maybe you get your knight on f4. Like, you're getting it better, you know, instead of sitting on f8 for the next 20 years, you want the knight to get really active. So this may be a better... And he's playing d5, and maybe this is actually a mistake, though, now that he plays d5. Mistake for me, because he's disallowing knight e6. That's huge. That's a huge move. I wonder if I could still get it though, like g5, knight g6, and still go for knight f4. This way, yeah, knight f4. So the knight defends h7. Yeah, g5 is weakening the king a little bit, but maybe even bishop f5. But the idea is knight g6. I mean, you have to be worried about h7 down, so maybe this is not easy. Also, d5. d5 is one of those moves. Actually, I may have missed knight d4. Now that I'm thinking about it, knight d4 maybe is his idea. So the knight gets to like a better square. Again, pawn push in really in chess is really key. Each pawn push you do, it could give a weakness around the square. Look at this, knight d4. I mean, it's good move from a strong player. It's a good move. All right, maybe knight g6 anyway. I mean, here I may have to take... So d5, I didn't finish my thought there. d5, as much as it's actually a good move, it could also be like the pawn is weakening. Like it's a pass pawn, technically. It could still be weak. Meaning that I could still take it and find a way to, like, you know, win it. So it's one of those moves. I think in this line, though, in this opening and this line, d5 is typically playable, so it's okay. I'm not sure about the current position, though. So maybe it's 50-50, I think. So he plays knight f5. So we have some issues in hand here. So I could even take one time, maybe. This open up for the bishop, though. So maybe he could also consider d6. I may just have to take, though. I don't think my choices is huge. No, maybe we could trade stuff. He's considering taking here. 2 bishops. Takes. Here. I'm not sure about this ending, though. This ending is interesting. So if we want to look at over this position, tell ourselves who's better. Actually, he has the 2 bishops. This pawn, he's likely to take as well. Like rook takes. I mean, maybe white is probably good, but is it winning? Is it enough? Black has double pawns. But there's maybe some dynamic play. There may be some crazy knight f4. You don't care about h7 in this kind of stuff. You want to go after d5. So maybe black still have something going, like dynamic play as a for the 2 bishops. So if I reach a situation where I play here and takes, maybe black is just fine, and the double pawn wouldn't be a concern, right? And that's actually what I meant by d5. It could be weakness. Now, once we traded more rooks, like we trade one pair of rooks, it's interesting. I mean, maybe I'm happy with just a draw here. There's also potential of knight e5. All right, he took here. I'm assuming if here, there's maybe this kind of stuff, but I can still play. I can still defend b7 somehow. Yeah, maybe here. This one, if I could make the arrows right. The arrows are always wrong. Like, I always put them in the wrong direction. So this one is interesting. Knight f4 is still a concern. You would love to play g3, right, to stop all these jumps, but this bishop takes. So that's the reason. Queen d2. He's looking at queen takes g5. That's a move. There's a pin. There is a pin, but I think I have knight f4, though. So g3 we could always take. So knight f4 is getting in. And then we are threatening this. So by the way, okay, so takes here is this queen takes g5. So he's still defending. He wants to play g3 though. So if I could get a way to trade down d6. He's also here. He wants to play g3 though. g3 we could take though. Maybe not a problem. So h6. So now I'm defending g5. So if he plays here, we could always take. I mean, this knight is trappy though. Maybe he has here? And then queen c8. This is not easy. I mean, this is maybe one he wants to try, g3. I mean, I'm going to offer him a draw and see what happens. This is maybe close to a draw, but he's going to play on. Okay, so he wants to go for f6 after f6. That's understandable. So if we go for this kind of ending, oh, he's attacking here as well. All right, just here. I mean, here knight takes. Hopefully it's a draw though. d6. You gotta be d6. But again, d6 is also, there's a drawback. Queen e6. Oh, maybe then he plays here. He wants me to, he just keep pressuring on f6 as much as possible. So he could still play here. The real question is, could I play queen d8? And then he takes here. Maybe still, this is maybe still draw though, somehow. I believe this is still, somehow it feels like I could still draw this if I know what to do. Takes. All right, let's do this. I think maybe this is okay. Hopefully I'm right. Takes, f6. I mean, this is maybe... He's gonna take, I suppose, on some kind of bishop c4. My argument is actually this pawn is takeable. Like d6, I could go around my the pieces against it. And again, that's what I meant by he wants to play g3. So here, g3 is going to be a move. We have to go here. So maybe something like he was going to play bishop g2. This is actually very close stuff. So here, a trade here might be good for black, actually. I'm not sure about bishop g2. The reason this may be good for black, this is a dynamic game now, because if you take king e6, f5, d6 might be falling. And then, oh, maybe d7. Oh, did I miss this? Bishop 6? Wow. Oh, maybe I made a mistake. Forgot about this. Alright, that's fine. Up a pawn, I'm not happy about this, but maybe this is still holdable. So king e6 is really necessary. That's a nice play by him, though. I figured that I could still keep the pawn. But we have 1 minute, so this is like both chess. We both are like both players. So the idea is here, some kind of h5. He wants to play here. For g4. He's not gonna allow me to play g4 myself. So he's putting a pawn here, which is... It's all about speed. I'm trying to draw that. There's always this kind of moves. Oh, it's defending. I wonder if I could still draw this. No, let's not draw. So I could stop this pawn, but the real question is what to do against the other two. I need like a trade. Here, 94. This is really scary looking. He goes after a6. I'm not sure. Looking really close for a win for him. Speed though. B3. Pawn is running. Wait, he just promotes? He just promotes. Nice, no, nice. Yeah, 20 seconds left. I mean, what I'm supposed to be doing. E4. All right, let's play D4. Smith Mora. Miss more. Oh, it's b4. Smith Moore opening. There's a popular guy that plays this kind of stuff. Mark Esserman. Where's Mark when you need him? Hey Henry, how's it going? I'm not sure. I mean, this opening is not something that I play every day. But this one is fun though. It's all about knight g6. Alright, big castles. Maybe rook d1. Knight g6. This is fun though. So what happens after e5? You cannot really take. This has to be good for white. So it's supposedly here knight e4. How he handles this? There's also some wacky knight d5 ideas. I don't think it works here. He could actually take on bishop e7. Then you have nothing. Rook e1 wouldn't do anything. Maybe he wants knight h4. Maybe it's f6. That's actually my concern. Here is f6. And e5, knight h4. Takes. You don't have knight e4. The bishop is strong. g3, I guess. That's a tough choice. What to do? All right, I actually slipped. I didn't mean to play knight e5. I want to play e5. Yeah, it's e5, not knight e5. All right, resign. Yeah, so obviously here the idea is pretty simple. I mean, we'll take a look at the computer. Knight d5, yeah. So this actually, knight d5 is one of the ideas. Supposedly, if you hear, maybe this is actually a playable line in d6. Yeah, that's looking like a good move. So I was looking at e5. This turns out to be not a good nice move. So this one is probably met by this, queen takes and g3 or something. Bishop e3 maybe, and then. But I think black is better here because of bishop e7. Knight e4 is not that. He's still down a pawn. Computer feel like the pawn is good enough for black. Good, yeah, good play. Good play so far. We didn't win a single game, which is fascinating. Now we have to win. Alright, knight c3. Knight f6 will be the Vienna. So I've been trying to play f4 here for some time, so that's my chance. f4, you could take. This is fun line, queen h4. I mean, I haven't actively played this in a long time, but this is fun though. It's fun. It's a fun line. So this is fine. That's actually he's supposed to play like this, not f3, but d6. I think knight f3, bishop g4. I'm trying to remember the line myself, but trying to remember. If I take on f4, is it king takes? This is how you play the king takes. Actually, I don't know if black misplayed this. Maybe there's, I think there's g5 in between, like around here. Actually, yeah, maybe g5 is like one of the moves. But anyways, so bishop takes here, king takes, queen h5, g4. This thing takes a knight f6, maybe? That's actually what they do. So we take... You cannot take with the pawn. The bishop is hanging. So again, queen h5 is met by g4. So knight f6 perhaps. But I don't know if this line could easily turn into white's favor, to be honest. Once you take on f4, black has to be careful. Even though the king is already on f3. White could easily go for like g3, h3, bishop c4, or bishop b5, and things could get you dealing with two bishops fast enough. And then you may have the open file, like the rook f1 in some line. And it gets really fascinating. That maybe white is actually better, even the king is sitting on f3. So knight f6, now this is a real move. Queen g4. I think g3, queen here, and king f2, and I think this is maybe comfortable anyway. Knight g4, king g3, which is funny. I'm pretty sure it's g3, considering the... I'm trying to remember the line. And if check on g4, you play king g1, which is really funky. So something like here, knight g4, king g1, the bishop covers. Is h3 is also a possibility. But then queen h5, you don't have g4 because he could take. If you take this way, queen takes h1. I'm trying to remember, maybe g3, to be honest. It rings a bell for me. I know. Should be okay. I think the line also, what makes it this is actually challenging is actually b6. If I remember b6 and some kind of like bishop e6, this actually looks like interesting instead of d6. I mean, d6 is a line too, but I'm trying to remember if b6 is actually more interesting for black. The other line was b6. There are some concerns, and you may eventually trade down the bishop on f1, which then, you know, black maybe have the stronger side. But this one is fun. When you take on f4, supposedly white could get active. That's because the bishops. There's also king g2. I don't have to play king f2. So this is maybe more safer. And then it's funny because the king castles. I mean, that's the reason why I don't like this for black so much. Because I remember, like, there's a game between, I think it was like Magnus playing it, and this setup happened where Magnus played like king g2. So what happened is, what Magnus had the two bishops, everything was really nice. He played like rook f1. Eventually he gets to break on e5, and it was like a break on e5, and he really won the game. It was a nice nice tactics. But it did help him because he has the two bishops, and the king was already on g2, and it was a really good deal. All right, we just play here. Should he trade queens? And I think this is actually what happened during the game. They traded queens on d1, exactly this line, and I think white was just, was better. And there you can see the center, it actually belongs to white, not so much black. So you have to be careful in this line, even though... even though it's like the king at g2 is just like, it's castled already. So, I mean, one of the reasons is actually f7 is a big concern, like bishop c4 is like concerning stuff. You may have to play like here, knight takes is one way, bishop g5, bishop e7. So here is knight takes. So the idea is d5. I wonder if this bishop e2 and some kind of e5 from white. And this is, I'm trying to remember Magnus' game. I think maybe bishop e2 was a move. So you're taking away all these knight h5 ideas, and you're really looking at e5, rook f1. You can see that white is fluid with the moves, and f7 is maybe weakness. It's fascinating. Hey, good evening. Welcome back. Some kind of rook f1. I mean, the whole thing is just looks like white is really good. It's your move. It's your move. I played this guy before, I think. No, not. 1 year ago, though. 1 year ago. That's fine. Oh, well, he plays d5 himself. But the problem with this move... So there's two ways you could deal with this. Maybe take a couple times, c3, and then you still have the two bishops. And there's another stronger move is maybe here. Is he like trying to play this? Because I could take on c3. e4 has to be weakness. So if you go here, where he's going, right? I mean, you're going here? No, it's not a way to go. There's also bishop g4 in some line, and I'm pretty sure e5 is pretty strong. Again, f7 is huge issue. I'm assuming here. But this is where the two bishops really shine. Like in a position like this. This is huge. Two bishops here in a situation like this. I mean, without like a lot of moves in, the two bishops are really fluid here in a position like that. I mean, you could always tell, because this is actually what I mean by that. Like long term, short term, more diagonals. There's potential here. And black didn't really like develop his bishop yet. I mean, I'm assuming that he had to play like bishop b4 or something. I mean, maybe if it's what was the move? Maybe like, you know, some kind of like g6, bishop g7. It's hard to say because, you know, bishop e7. He played knight e4, so the choice is clear. We have also here, we could allow a double pawn. We could take rook c3. So c3 is necessary, should I take, because he's attacking d4. And this actually shut down the bishop, assuming that he goes to e7. But then a move like almost rook e1 would possibly take a pawn. Takes c3. This has to be good. There's no way. I mean, I could also go... I could actually claim that king f2, king e3 takes on e4 with the king is also playable. Be honest. I mean, this is how strong this position is. There's also d5. d9, e7, c4. I mean, this whole thing is just too much. Too much to hold. I mean, even if somehow he holds, let's say he wins, it doesn't take away that this position is huge from White's perspective. 97, this is maybe one of the only moves left standing. I guess he's going here. That makes sense. I mean, there's a couple options. Maybe we could now consider we could trade that knight here. I mean, this is maybe where you could actually tell yourself, well, we have the two bishops, but if we're able to take a pawn. Now, it is key to understand that sometimes two bishops alone doesn't mean anything. You have to like find a way to gain the advantage. So I think here we could trade rook e1, e4 is the goner. So maybe this is it. At f5, we just take on, so this is it. It's all about taking on e4, so maybe it's rook d e1, and then bring the other rook to f1, so we can keep an eye on f7. Remember, in order to win a game, you need like two weaknesses. One is not good enough, depending on which one. I mean, let's say you have a piece. That's already like one is if you have a piece, it's good enough for winning a game. But there are some weaknesses where it's not enough, some kind of imbalance where you need like at least two in order to win. So here is a good idea. c5 is a try, but this doesn't really help at all. This may be a more mistake because I take and then we have a pass pawn. So this will lead to like a pass pawn on d4 because the pawn on c3 gets to d4. So I mean, this position is terrible by my own standard, but he can play on. I mean, if I have this in a classical game, I mean, 90% of the time I should be winning this. I mean, even if I'm playing a Grandmaster here, likely I could win. Because this position is easy from my master perspective to win. Because there's a couple of issues here that it doesn't really help. So this is a try, right? Still takes on e4. Yeah, so this is a clear pawn, and we still have activity going on. It's funny that this bishop on f8 is not moving. Maybe it's going to move now, and then where exactly is going to move? Bishop d6. So this is okay for me because trading is good for me, right? I'm up a pawn, so any trade should be good. So technically, you should be careful if you're entering rook endings, because you know rook endings are drawn, right? Yeah, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily, but it depends on which kind of rook endings. There's still two rooks here, so I can still keep two rooks if I want. But this one is really tough to hold, even if we trade one pair of rooks. I actually missed one move here, maybe here, but rook d7. So maybe rook here was better. So maybe I'm heading toward here. There's also f6 that's still weakness. h5 is also, I consider this is a problem. So he's meeting rook e7 with his rook here. I take king takes. This is actually what he's trying to say. We could play rook f5. So sometimes rooks is all about activity in order to win games. So this is one active rook. We may be looking at some kind of here, putting enough pressure on h7. I mean, should we win h7, this is like over. There's another plan that I could try to do is here, rook h6. I just have to be careful with like counterplay on e2. So maybe this is the way first to do it. Here, does he has time for rook here? I mean, even if you allow rook e2, this may still be winning for white, because the pawns are start gonna it's gonna be an issue for him. I could still play this. I don't have to trade anything. I mean, I could still play h4, rook g8. Like I could start with h4. Yeah, maybe you could trade one rook down. It depends. I don't have to. I mean, I have a lot of choices. I'm slow playing it. So king f3, the point is I'm not allowing rook e2. I'm just slow playing the position. I could play now rook g4 or something like here. Or I could still push him somehow, but I think maybe here it's okay. So we could go here and rook f8 even. So now you could see that rook e6 is not relevant. I mean, unless he gets the two rooks in, but then it doesn't make too much sense, right? He's trying, but... So, all right, check. I think here, and then here. You can still defend a little bit, king e6. Some little bit of defense. Oh, this move has to be bad. So rook here now. There's a reason why the king here, so king e6 would defend on... well, maybe it doesn't matter. f7 is still... rook f8 is still strong. So his defense is around here, but again, rook f7. He's a pick up h7. That's how you play rook activity. That's one way. And all I have to do is like, slow playing the position, stopping rook e2. So I move my king on f3. And I slowly, actively move my rooks in a way that I'm attacking his pawn. So now he cracks because there's no way you could really defend one of them. You could defend one, but he cannot defend the other one. So let's say he plays rook here, defending f6, but that allows us check, dropping h7. This one is okay. I mean, he's going back to rook e2, but it's a little bit too late. Because once you win h7, you do have two serious pass pawns, not just one. Maybe here and rook f2 even, if you want to be tactical, specific. I could argue that maybe here it's the only way he could try to draw rook g7. So maybe we could just defend. So if he plays here, rook here. If he plays here, rook f3. And then again, I have rook f7 at some point. This move is okay, just here. I mean, this is maybe resignable, but we'll see how. Because I'm just up 2 pawns. It's not just one now, so it's 2 for 1 here, so that's difficult. He plays c5. I don't understand the move though, so I could take 1. Start pushing 1 pawn. There's also, you could take rook f2. I mean, it's too many ways to win this one. Rook here, we just exchange 1 pair of rooks. So if he takes this way, he's losing h7. So g4. This is easy now. So the king gets active. We're cutting off the king on f8. The f file anyway, so he cannot go to like king g7 sometime in the future. His resignation here really seems to be key, but he's gonna play on here. I mean, I don't know. King could go to d3 sometime, somewhere. I'm not sure how. With his rook d2 if I want. So king c4, king d2. I could play here and play here. I could still win this one. g5. Yeah, I just made it look really easy, but it is easy, right? I mean, he had no play. You know, I'm talking about like 2300. He had no play, and we could explain after the game what I mean by that. I mean, sometimes if you're able to figure out the position, even the best moves you could try to play, it may not be enough. I mean, here he could play rook g7, but this is all about activity, and he's down a pawn. I intentionally sacked the pawn, but I know that I could take it back or still win. Yeah, he resigned now. It's funny that he resigned here and did not resign before. This one, maybe, you know, it's terrible, but anyway, this is actually 100% losing anyway. +4, I'm actually shocked by this. +5, I felt like it was more. But anyways, the reason this is easy, and I made it look easy, is about activity. It's funny that king f3 is not precise move. I wonder why. But anyways, here... So we have the bishop pair, right? So I kept saying bishop pair, and so what? Like, okay, so the bishop pair would play a role, should, you know, in a position like this is c3, the computer likes it. There's nothing that he could do like bishop e7. I felt like he had to develop the bishop anyway, like at all costs. Maybe have some g5 in, connect the 2 rooks, but he have to move the bishop. The idea that he kept his bishop on f8 for the longest time. We always tell people at all levels, like people started playing the game yesterday, or even strong players, that they do need to develop a piece, always develop their pieces. If you have one piece that you cannot develop it, you try to find a way to do so. If you look over my opponent's play here, all the way back here, as I told you, the computer liked this whole thing, right? I mean, we should go back because this is actually fascinating line to me, though. So here is equal, and I know why. You know, there's plenty of ways to play. So maybe here, before we go to the deep lines, so queen h4 is the right move, king e2. I believe it's b6, and his b6 is actually an interesting line. So something like queen d2, and then it's, yeah, there's some crazy f5, and we'll just follow the line here. Knight f3, queen h5, and then you take... and then knight f6, for example. Knight b6 is bishop e6, I think, if I'm not mistaken, something like this. This is actually, if you look at it, this is like, black has some play here, some strong play, as opposed to the other line. This one looks a bit scary, though, but it's still playable from white's perspective. You can still play that, but black gets really active. So I felt like this line, the issue here is maybe more b6. You're looking at getting the bishop on e6, some kind of castling long, and some dynamic play on the king side. d6 is still playable line. Again, I think Fabiano also played this before, I suppose. So here you can see the computer is telling me it's a draw, but you know, all you have to do is like one mistake, and then bishop takes f4, and I suppose it's castling long. Yeah, maybe this is actually what he's supposed to be doing. It's still like dynamic here. There's still a lot of things going on. I still like maybe white with activity with 2 bishops. Yeah, the king would eventually be secure enough. It's not going to be exposed. But once you do this, and then he plays knight f6, you can see the computer really doesn't like this at all. There's a good explanation, G3. And it's good that I remember the line because I know G3 is huge. If you don't remember the line, you're in trouble. Because you could go for H3, right? And you tell yourself H3, and I think H3 is playable. It was a playable move. I mean, assuming Queen H5, you could play King F2. But here is maybe, like, black maybe okay. You could still castle long. But G3, we gain a tempo against a queen. The difference between the two moves are kind of drastic here because you could feel like what's the point of G3? The king gets to G2 fast enough. The idea that the king gets to G2 and some kind of like a bishop move or rook F1 fast enough, it's actually troubling for black. You can see that G3 now, from computer's perspective, is like, it doesn't matter if you do Queen H5 check, King G2 is huge. Even after you castle long, right? You castle long and then you play bishop E2, you're gaining a lot of momentum here, right? It's huge from white's perspective. Queen G6, and then you could even play H4. This is like really strong. The king on G2. The king on G2 was already castled for some insane reasons, and we have the two bishops acting in a good way. The queen on G6 is almost trapped. I mean, you do have to play like H5, and then you're giving up this G5 square, and you do this is actually huge for white, even after D5. So my opponent did that one, but trading here is also good for white because for the other reasons that I was explaining, right? For rook takes, he eventually played castle long. Again, bishop e7 is online. Yeah, I mean, you may consider that you could castle long, but the real question is why didn't he castle long early? Like, why would he had a chance to castle like around here? Again, we talk about developing pieces all the time. You could delay developing in one move. It doesn't have to be like for like 10 moves. There are exceptions in the game, to be honest. When to castle, when to develop, when to time it. So when he plays castles here, this bishop c4, maybe I was a bit concerned. So I was concerned about knight takes c4. That's actually my... Oh, maybe it's take, and maybe there's a tactic here. d5, and then knight g5. So I missed this move. Yeah, so the idea is here, and knight takes f7, so you're winning. So here, even bishop c4 is huge. So bishop c4 is huge. Why? Because f7 is under attack. So now that knight takes c4 is not playable tactically. You play rook d7 and some kind of like bishop g5, rook hf1. So this is actually huge because of the activity that white has. So he played d5, and then this move is horrible because of e5. There was actually a couple of moves as well. Didn't I say... what move did I say that it was another move then instead of e5? I already forgot. Oh, it's taking. Didn't I say taking during the game? Yeah, taking was also a move. The idea, if you were to take on d5, you could still do this on c3, I suppose. So this one is still good, though. It's the same concept. You still have the two bishops. This is maybe even more clear as far as like the bishop activity going here and here. The bishop is activity going there. So this is very good. The computer is saying 1.2. Maybe it's stronger. From white's perspective, like in the long term. Sometimes Stockfish here is not giving you the direct evaluation. I think if you have the cloud version or you have it like you leave it for like half an hour, it may go for like 2 points, 2+2, I guess. Yes, thank you, Henry. So here taking on d5, we talked about this. You know, d5 taking on d5 is also good. So, but e5 is huge, and the reason it's huge, we gain a momentum by attacking a piece on f6, right? It's his move. The computer is giving me knight g8. This is how horrible this position is. If the computer feel like knight g8 is the only move, then this is crisis at this point. We never go back. You never go back to the original square unless you have to. Computer feel like it's necessary to go back. And it's not liking knight e4, and there's a reason why. Because if you play knight e4, it likes my choice, right? Takes, and then c3. Because we, by default here, we're going to win a pawn. The c4 pawn is going to be goner. I'm just wondering if knight e7, did I had another move? Yeah, I actually had, and instead of bishop c4, I think the whole thing is winning though. It doesn't matter. It's like this move is probably more precise. And let's say he plays knight d5, you play bishop g4 and king d8, and then rook takes e4. It's still the same concept. Exactly during the game is eventually going to take on e4, and let's say he takes here. The reason I may not like this so much, maybe we didn't enter this so much, because there's the opposite color bishops. Like they have opposite color bishops, usually give the defender some chances to draw, even though it's terrible here for black, but I would be cautious to enter this position. So for me, the much easier one is to force it in a certain way, like bishop c4 and knight d5 and take. So we could have the same color of the bishop, right? So because the reason is if you have the opposite color bishops, maybe your opponent could draw. If you make this one slight mistake, and even though he's down a pawn, he could still draw, right? But here it's difficult because it's the same color bishop. It's not the same, right? So f5 is terrible. It doesn't matter what he does, e4 is going to fall. So I guess even if you play c6 or something, and it's funny that you don't take the pawn here right away. This is actually the strongest move in the board. Here you gain a tempo by keeping an eye on f7. You're gonna take e4 at all cost. You don't have to do it like, I mean, this is not a blunder, by the way, but this one, you're gonna take it like the next move or two, but this one is preparing yourself to go after f7. I actually feel like this is as bad as it gets. Bishop e7, and it's not gonna, and then you take on e4. But you already, the point is rook f1 is just, preparing itself to attack on f7. So it's terrible position at all cost. Takes f5. It doesn't matter here. So bishop d6. So bishop d6. This is actually what's funny about this position. The only time that he developed his bishop is by trading. Now, that's a good choice if it's like the only thing that you have, but it has to be in a decent position, right? Like you're not down a pawn. So technically, this is a mistake, if you think about it, because you're trading down, which is in white's favor. The computer doesn't like this. I mean, it's still liking it. It just felt like rook f1 is more precise. So let's say you take his like rook here. You win the pawn by default in f6. It doesn't matter much. You could still take on d6. But the point is, the only time the bishop has to move is by trading down. So you don't have bishop b4. You don't have bishop h6. Bishop g7 is one way, but this is as crappy as it gets because the bishop is not active at all. It may be active on f8, by the way. I mean, if I'm given a choice between g7 and f8 is more squares to go to. The only issue with f8 is blocking the rook activity, then the rook on h8. So maybe it doesn't matter. So he gets to play bishop d6. We take. So now once you're up a pawn, you're playing this kind of position, you go to the next step. Chess is all about like different steps. You win a pawn. We won a pawn, right? The reason it's +2, almost +3 is actually because black is inactive. He's not generating anything. He's losing tempos as we go along, right? So in order to win a position like this, first of all, there's like potential 2 for 1. Should f6 is gone. Which means you could create a pass pawn. But the idea here is to stay active with the rooks as much as possible. I could see that h7 is weakness. Like I could put a rook on h5, keep pressuring it. Any kind of rook move, it could be h6. So sometimes you're just trying to put the idea, you just try to make the moves, right? So the idea is maybe attack one of those 2 pawns, which I was able to achieve, right? So first of all, rook f1. The computer may disagree, but it's still like, we're still within range of what we're supposed to be doing, right, to win the game. It's not like I'm losing edge. I mean, if you're losing edge, then the whole thing is collapsing, right? Like you're not really playing well, but we are keeping on with the advantage. So computer matching with rook f5. Now, rook f5 is simple. The idea is you want to play here, you want to play here. Again, we're looking at the weaknesses. c6 doesn't really add up very well. I look at this, the computer actually giving rook b6, and I can tell you this move makes a little bit of sense. Because you need activity. Rook b6 is actually an active move. Like I would consider this as like a decent defense move. You're keeping up with b2. Should you play b4, then c3 might become a weakness, right? It's rook c6. This is rook c5, rook e3, but at least you're having some targets. As opposed to the rook being on d6, is not doing anything. I mean, the pawn is sitting on d4 protected by c3. So the rook on d6 is not really an active rook, it's just defending for the next 50 years. And but rook b6 is a much better move. It's not going to be winning or drawing the game or anything, it's just generating some activity. Right? Sometimes if you're able to generate some activity and your opponent slip, you could save games. I mean, I saved hundreds of games before, even with black side. You know, you might be thinking, how could you save this with black? Yeah, you can. If your opponent slip, right? Meaning not tactical mistake, but giving you some activity, like rook b6. Let's say you play b4 and then rook here, you play here, and let's say he goes for like something like, you know, you're trying to get this kind of stuff, rook c4 here, rook c6. Then black maybe getting some activity. Still losing, by the way, but obviously, yeah, rook d5 is kind of nasty because of rook checkmate. So if you take here is mate. So it's all about activity, but also he's down a pawn, so it doesn't help his case so much. So the reason rook f5, c6, I don't like c6 because it doesn't really contribute to anything. It's just like a wasted pawn move. h4, again, it doesn't matter much, rook here. I mean, if you play here and he played here, you could still take. And let's say king takes, you have to take with the king, rook takes is rook takes f6. So king takes, the reason this is winning because of rook h5, which is something that I missed myself. But rook h5, you win the h pawn. So should you take the second pawn, it's all over. By the way, if he was able to hold up with a pawn, let's say, and that's the reason why I said rook trading one rook may be tricky. Let's say he takes here, and I don't get to play here. I play like king g1 or something here. Something like here, here, here. Maybe this may be holdable, like in a blitz game, like a situation like this. It's still good for white. The reason it's good for white because you could actually create some pass pawn here and distract white from, and that, maybe defending h7 for the longest time. So maybe it's like some kind of king over, c4, d5, like something like just to give you quick moves here. Let's say he plays here. I know that rook takes c5 is a move, but the idea is something like here, b6. You know, the computer likes d5, but it's something like along this line here, some kind of structure like this. So you're distracting him from, you have the d5 pass pawn, and you may just get your king active all the way, or even active the other side of the board, king c4, king b5. This may still be winning, of course. So you're using using some kind of distraction, the pawns or pass pawn in a way that, in order to, like, he doesn't able to keep up with all sides of the board, right? So king g2. So here the reason this is losing, I could just simply take some, just because we could take h7, which I didn't like right away saw. So h4. This is still winning because I'm gaining a tempo. So here, this is what we call like a quiet move. You're not really committed to anything. You could do a lot of quiet move in chess, as long as you're not losing grip. If you're losing grip, then h4 could be like a waste of tempo, right? But here you're just making some gains, so you could advance your pawn as much as possible. Like instead of it's probably better on h4 than h2, right? But you just have to be careful not to allow like some kind of like weaknesses on g3. But here it doesn't matter because we're just slowly playing. You can see that the computer doesn't like this at all. Rook d7. I guess it wants here and rook h8 or something. Maybe something like this. Or rook f8. Yeah, that's the same concept. You can just go after this pawn and then it's gone. I could have went for this. And that's the reason why it doesn't like f3, king f3, because I had this. He doesn't have rook d8. Rook d8 is probably met by this, and it's rook d7 takes. It's the same idea, rook h5. It's the same concept. But here, even if you miss rook e8, and he's still able to keep up because you rook g4 because it wants rook e8. But anyways, here, and then we went back and attacked. I mean, I had this before, right? Rook f8, but I did not achieve it. So here, once you just win one pawn, it's over. additional pawns. That's going to be like 2 pawns. And I actually felt like he should have resigned here because there's no resistance at all. Like, I mean, there's nothing you could do. You just go back and defend. You also have to be careful here. The only move that you have to, if you go for this, is maybe rook g5. This is actually the reason it's still winning. But if you go back here, you're getting hit by rook takes g3. You don't want to see that happening. Or even here, you're getting hit by another rook takes g3. Actually, the other rook. Yeah. Actually, here it's... Wait. This is actually not takeable. This is still winning. But if you win here, it's... Wait, what makes one winning and one is not? If you just go here, this is actually not the only bad thing. Okay, so here is still winning. But you want to play precisely. It's a technical move. It's just simply defend. Also, this is another thing, another lesson is that once you're up 2 pawns, you have 2 choices. Defending what your opponent is doing, or you promote in a situation like this. So we have 2 pawns. Eventually, you want to promote one of the pawns. So I have to defend on e2 because if you allow this check and if for insane reasons you play this, I mean, this is still losing, by the way. It's still losing. That's how bad this position is. But if you allow this kind of stuff, let's say you play one slip, bad mistake like this is actually a draw, right? Because of rook takes e2. So you're no longer winning now. So you just have to make like one couple of mistakes to slip in order to to give him a comeback. But for me, I felt like that this is by far the best move because I'm not allowing anything at all here. And after c5, which doesn't make too much sense here, h5 here, just trade and here. Rook f6 is just by far the best move, which require him to go here. g5 is still good anyway. This is still a very good move. So it goes here and king g4 and h6, you could still win. The problem here, the reason he resigned, because he didn't feel comfortable against something like this. King takes g5. And that's what I mean by promoting the pawn. Should you have a pawn, you just promote it. King c4 wouldn't really do anything here. I was talking about rook king c4 here. Was it here? Yeah, he's just play, this couple moves g5. If you really have to, you could play rook d2. So it doesn't come to d3. So this is actually my type of moves that I like to play. Rook d2 is disallowing my opponent's counterplay. Once you avoid the counterplay, then you start thinking about winning. So I know that this king never could come to d3 since my rook would stay on the d file. Then after that, my thinking process is going to be like, how do I push the pawn? And then that's how you win games. There are some issues sometimes. Some of my students, for example, they would probably do they would have a pawn, right? But they lose grip. They allow one counterplay, and then they may actually draw the game, or some cases lose the game. They're up a pawn. They are not down a pawn. They're up a pawn. And sometimes I have to explain it to them that sometimes when you're up a pawn, you cannot get relaxed. You have to play active. You still have to have some other work to do. And one of those 2 works that you have to do is avoid all the counterplays that your opponent is trying to put up. So sometimes it's opponent is mad, I'm down a pawn, I have to find all the active moves to make a comeback, right? Whether he's playing some active moves so he could claim... I mean, let's say the active move here that black could do, for example, in a situation like this, let's say you play really passively with white. So let's say something like here, and then here, let's say you play g5. And guess what? This is maybe a comeback. Let's say you play reckless and then king c3. This is what I would consider a comeback. So you may still find a way to eventually get to play g6, but it's already too late because you allowed some counterplay. So why should you allow all of this? What I would tell students is maybe you want to be specific enough or you want to be a good player enough. If he's coming to c4 and you don't like the idea that he's coming, you may just play here. That's fine. Since the king is not going to come here, then he has only one rook to play with. And this is the rook going to play g7. Then it's easy from here because you could use your king as a way to attack. And that's how you could win games. So the king could go all the way to king h6 maybe. Like I could play here and then let's say h6 here. You may still need to use your rook though. I mean, let's say this actually happened. You could play rook d6 and you're still maintaining the d file. So something like here, 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 and then you could take that way. And that's how you could avoid, and you're still maintaining that, you know, you don't allow the king to come over. That's one example. It's not exactly a good example. It's not really a good example in terms of like allowing counterplays, but it's a good lesson in different positions, meaning that sometimes people up a pawn, they get relaxed, and then in a rook ending, they draw the game, or some cases they lose. And I, from seeing the games, it's just simply like weird mistakes in one time, or they allowing two tempos for no reason. They are so relaxed, they're allowing two tempos, and this two tempos is enough for their opponent to like claim victory or draw. So what I always tell them, once you're up a pawn, the game now takes a different stage. You know, you just need to prove that this pawn could turn into a queen. But before we do that, you have to make sure that your opponent is not really doing anything in between before you get to this stage, right? So this is one good example, like how I stop my opponent from rook e2. That's, I mean, even though the computer could find ways, computers could always find ways, like, oh, that rook e2 is not it's not a move. Like you could still play here and win. I mean, this is still winning, right? Take on b2, and this is still winning. So, and because of rook f7, and this is actually still winning because of something like here, rook takes h7. This is actually a huge win. And the reason is, once you take here, this pass pawns are enough for a win. So that's basically what a good player like would play like this from White's perspective. He knows that these two pass pawns, once I reach to this situation, this e7 is like miles behind, is not fast enough to get to the finishing line, because I go here first. And if it's not g3 that's winning, then it must be h4, because this is actually faster. So it's step by step, yeah. It's all about the process, you know. It gets easier if you play like weaker opponents, but it gets really complicated if you play the stronger opponent. Let's say, let's say I'm 2000. I'm actually 22, but if you're playing 2000 player, and it's the same level that you are, then he's going to complicate things for you. If you're playing, let's say 1400, and you're a 2000 rated player, then it doesn't matter. The step by step may not really matter. Depends on who you play. He didn't lose the tempo of that bishop. Yeah, that's true. Anyways, hopefully that's fun. Learning experience for all of you. We won one game, but was it one or two games? But we're still above 2400, which is still good. My first opponent was really rough. I mean, he was really good. He was only like 2500. But yes, so today, that's it for today, for YouTube though. So I should be back later today doing Puzzle Rush. We are actually doing Puzzle Rush 63 right now, and I have it saved. So 63, no mistakes so far. I mean, maybe we will do a mistake. I mean, maybe the mistake as soon as 64 hits. Like, so 63 in chess.com. I mean, I'm looking for some kind of like maybe we could do 90, who knows? But we're doing it for fun and learning experience anyway. The puzzles could be fun. I don't know if you guys know, but there's one time that I did a puzzle that it took me like 1 hour and 30 minutes. 1 hour and 30 minutes to solve it. I cannot even believe it in myself. How could I spend like a puzzle for 1 hour and 30 minutes? And I remember doing Puzzle Rush for like 8 hours straight, and I spent like hours, 1 hour in one, and this only for the strongest puzzles, like the hardest puzzles, right? So I mean, so that's the reason why I'm mentioning it. For people who want to tune in later today, the puzzles could be fun because we engage with viewers, so they could tune in and suggest their moves, assuming that they're playing fair, right? You're not using any kind of assistance. Otherwise, what the point? So that's going to be later tonight. I'm not sure exactly what time, but later tonight, New York time. All right, folks. I'll let you guys go, and we'll be back later today. Later today, yes. And tomorrow, we're going to be back at YouTube. Brown and our view of this. Yes, that's true. All right, I will see you guys later. Take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.